Hi first graders, how are you this Wednesday? A few weeks ago, I asked you to send a video to me of you just waving and saying hi, and then I included that in this morning message. This week, I would like you to send me a video of you sharing a memory from first grade. We have so many great memories from earlier in this year, and I want to hear what you remember from our time at school. So I'm calling this our I Remember When video. You could say, I remember when we earned our incentive and we got extra recess. Or I remember when we'd go to the gym on Fridays. Or I remember when we learned how to use Redbird. Maybe you'd say, I remember when we went on a field trip and saw a play. There's so many things you could share. I just ask that you get those videos to me by noon this Friday, and then we'll see that video next week. Let's move on to our morning note for today. Dear first graders, today is Wednesday. I miss you all very much, but I have so many awesome memories from earlier this school year. Please remember to send your I Remember When video to me by noon on Friday. Have a wonderful Wednesday. Love, Mrs. Baker. Remember to go on Seesaw and make corrections to this note. All right, on Monday, we started talking about how we measure the distance or the length of objects. I have this book here today. It's called Weights and Measures, and I'm just going to read a couple pages out of it. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I am going to read the pages that are about measuring the distance of things or the length of things. It says, welcome to Weights and Measures. Here are some words: foot, gallon, ounce, meter, mile, pint, quart, and many more. What do they all mean? Let's start reading and find out. Here we have a chicken's foot, elephant's foot, a basketball player's foot, a mouse's tiny little foot there, and a baby's foot. If something is a foot long, how long is it? Is it as long as an elephant's foot? Is it as long as a chicken's foot? A baby's foot or a basketball player's foot? These feet are all different lengths. Everyone needs to use the same measurement when describing a distance or a length. Here is a ruler. Do you think they're talking about the king there or the ruler behind the king? It will help us measure things. I think we're talking about the ruler behind the king. What do you think, first graders? Inch. Here is 1 inch. The green inchworm is showing us how long 1 inch is. So if it's 1 inch, it's that long, 2 inches, 3 inches, 4 inches, and so on. Here is a foot. No, not the foot in your shoe. In this book, a foot is a unit of measure. 12 inches equal 1 foot. So here's 12 inches, and that's what we call a foot. That's the size of a standard ruler, first graders. 1 foot. Do you know how many feet tall you are? 12 inches equals 1 foot, 3 feet equals 1 yard, and that means 36 inches equal 1 yard. If something is a yard long, it does not mean the same thing as the yard behind someone's house. 1 yard is the same length as 3 feet. 36 inches is the same as 1 yard. So a lot of times, we'll call that a yardstick. It's the length of a yard. Do you remember how many feet are in a yard? How about inches? Mile. How many of you ran the mile with Mr. Claire this year? How long is a mile? It is exactly 1,760 yards. It is also 5,280 feet. Maybe you should just go for a 1 mile jog. So when you run that many yards and that many feet, it's 1 mile. Metric length measurements. In most countries outside of the United States, people do not use inches, feet, yards, or miles. Those are special measurements that we use here in the United States. In other countries, they have a different system of measurement. They use the metric system, which uses different units of measure. If you can count by tens, you can figure out the metric system. So there are 10 centimeters here. Here's a centimeter. A centimeter is the same length anywhere in the world. It is as wide as one of these colored squares. So each of these colors is a centimeter. 100 centimeters is a meter. 10 decimeters is also a meter. 1,000 meters is a kilometer. How many kilometers is it from your house to school? How many miles? Do you walk or take a bus? Those are some questions you can talk about using the different measurements. So, we are going to continue talking about measurements today, but hopefully this book helps you better understand the words that we use when we talk about measuring the distance of things. Today we are going to continue comparing lengths, and then we will also be putting different lengths in order. To start with, I want you to pretend like the box on page 569 is right in front of you. And I want you to find 2 objects at your house that would fit inside that box if it were a real box right in front of you. Draw those objects in the box and circle the object that is longer and put an X on the object that is shorter. When you turn the page, you can see that we are starting to put lengths in order. So we're not just talking about if they're longer or shorter, we're comparing more than 2 objects. So you see the scissors, the paint, and the pencil at the top. It says the pencil is longer than the scissors, and the paint set is longest. So these objects were put in order from shortest to longest. Now the next set of objects, you see a pen, a bookmark, and a paintbrush. It says the bookmark is shorter than the paintbrush, and the pen is the shortest. So number 1 was the longest object, and number 3 was the shortest object this time. For numbers 1 and 2, I just want you to compare the objects shown. And for number 1, you are circling the object that is shorter. And for number 2, you are going to circle the object that is longer. For number 3, you are going to be putting those objects in order, just like above. You are going to be putting them in order like this. Write 1 for long, 2 for longer, and 3 for longest. So your shortest object will have the 1, and your longest object will have the 3. For numbers 4 and 5, you are back to just comparing 2 objects. Number 4 wants you to circle the shorter object. It says which is shorter. So circle that correct object. For number 5, it says which is longer. So you are going to circle the object that is longer. Number 6 says order the objects by length. Write 1 for short, 2 for shorter, and 3 for shortest. So if 3 is your shortest object, 1 is going to be your longest object. Number 7 says order the objects by length. Write 1 for long, 2 for longer, and 3 for longest. So if your longest item is number 3, that means your shortest item is going to be number 1. On the last page, number 8 says John has 3 objects. How should he order the objects from shortest to longest? That means you will put the number 1 under your shortest object, the number 3 under your longest object. Number 9 says Tia owns 3 iguanas. How should she order the iguanas from longest to shortest? And explain how you ordered them to somebody at home after you do this. So your longest object or your longest iguana is going to have the number 1 under it, and your shortest iguana will have the number 3 under it. For number 10, it says Zoe writes 1 for long, 2 for longer, 3 for longest. Tell why Zoe is wrong and make it right. So I've put a sample on there, first graders. You can see on the writing lines, I just put long object equals, longer object equals, and longest object equals. And then I put the words for each of the objects near the picture. So you can write what the long object is, and that's really what the shortest object is, what the longer object is, and then what the longest object is.